Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV and Radio, where wisdom meets experience. Join a dynamic lineup of thought leaders, professionals, and changemakers from around the world. Dr. Madeline Chan from the UK. Mariska Dupreya from Australia, red.olaughlin from Texas, USA, Carolyn Heward from the UK, Zunette Lub from Cape Town, South Africa, as they share expert insights, personal journeys, and impactful strategies for success. Talking Heads isn't just a show, it's a global stage for education, collaboration, and inspiration. So elevate your knowledge, expand your perspective, engage in conversations that matter. Streaming globally, empowering locally, this is Talking Heads, only on USA Global TV and Radio.
Imagine having breakfast this morning with somebody who donated their heart to you. That is an opening. I did two things to start the show today. I had a 5-second pause at the very beginning, and then I asked an imagined question, something that could generate information. A little bit of inquisitiveness. Now, how could somebody give me their heart and I have breakfast with them? We'll talk about that down the road. But anyway, red.olaughlin here. This is Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Today we're talking about public speeches like a pro. So how do you get into that mode? I'm going to go ahead and load up the slides real quickly, and then we can get right into this program today. Public speeches like a pro, we're going to cover a lot of different aspects of it, primarily those in person, but I'll touch a little bit on the video thing that we're doing here on virtual live streaming. All the shows are live streamed. Amazon Fire, Zizzle TV, E360 TV, YouTube, more than a couple of channels on YouTube, Android TV, Apple, social media, and more. I do simulcast on 2 of my Facebook channels. So there's a lot of places that the live streaming is seen. Then we also have the audio broadcasts on podcasts that go out after the show. As always, these are for awareness and education. Let me go ahead and move to the next slide here. Most of my information can be found on my website, red.olaughlin.com, red, R-E-D, Olaughlin, O-L-A-U-G-H-L-I-N, red.olaughlin.com. All my contact information is there for the different social media sites. My books are there. I got a lot of information that can be found. And my 2 preferred ways of being contacted, number 1 is email. Just email me or give me a call on the phone. The YouTube location is USA Global TV and Radio. On there is the archives for all the other shows, plus any new shows that are coming up. If you also happen to be on my website, I have a section there for quite a few of the archive shows that I've done. I'm a researcher. Never been in the medical pharmaceutical field. Today I'm not talking about medicine, health, wellness. I'm talking about speaking. My first degree was in chemistry. I got 5 of them, a bunch of certifications. I spent over 3 decades in the Navy, flew for over 16 years. I specialize in cause and effect relationships, treating a cause, not the symptoms. Been married 57 years, a couple kids, 3 grandkids, and 1 great grandson now, just over a year and a half. Saw him last weekend. It was really nice. Best-selling author of a bunch of books, independent publisher, over probably 50 books right now I've done for other people. Distinguished Toastmaster, writer. I have over 1,000 original content articles on LinkedIn. And as I mentioned earlier, this information is for educational purposes only. Today, we're primarily talking about speaking, not quite the same thing as talking about Alzheimer's or something else. International TV host. Last year, I was rated number 2 and number 6 on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And this year, for the first 6 months, I was very fortunate to be number 1. I don't have a book on speaking, although I've thought about it, and I probably will come out with one, but I did write the Essential New Author's Guide, and in that I do talk about authors should be able to get up in front of a crowd and speak about their books and establish themselves, their credibility, and their expert skill levels in whatever topics that they're writing about. Okay, let's talk a little bit about speaking like a pro. I've never had a fear of public speaking, although some people absolutely dread it. It's just not something they can do. Some speeches are more difficult than others. I think my parents' eulogies are probably the 2 hardest speeches I ever given. Not so much that they were difficult to give, but you try to give something without showing too much emotion. Sometimes you show emotion, but not too much emotion. I've given speeches to audience, foreign, domestic, military, academia, corporate. I taught statistics for 3 years at the college level. Been in international forums where I have people wearing their earphones so they're listening in different languages. So I'm speaking in English and they're listening in French or German or something else. Been a distinguished Toastmaster, almost 20 years now, I guess. What does it take to be a pro? Well, in most cases, they say 10,000 hours, but in reality, it depends what skill set, what talents do you have. I bet you some people could probably be a pro in 500 hours, maybe others in 5,000 hours. But for speaking, I don't think it takes 10,000 hours. I think you get the right feedback, and literally within a couple of years, you could be speaking at a level that you could be earning a living. And I'm very serious about that. Depending on what topic that you're speaking on and how that can help others, what is the demand for your speech? That could be a mighty big source of income. I think some of the biggest income earners are speakers. Some of us are naturally gifted storytellers. They can tell a story to 3 or 4 people, but they can't tell a story to 300 or 400. So speaking in private and speaking in public is 2 different animals. The speaking, there's lots of different reasons why. For us today, education, awareness, information, a little bit of entertainment, not much, but a little bit. Sometimes we speak to influence others, inspire others, motivate others. Sometimes we speak to build relationships. A lot of times we're speaking to establish our credibility. And that's what I think a lot of authors have. When I first started out in Toastmasters, I had a really good ability to take a 5-minute speech and cram it into 20 minutes. After about 2 years, I was able to take 20-minute speech, cram it into 5 minutes, very elegantly, without notes, and deliver it. So there's a lot of things that getting professional help can do to improve your ability to speak. I look at it when you speak. Okay, you learn from what you have. So you're going to study. What did you say? I have a recording. Okay, well, it didn't do that very well. My face was, You can see things that when you're in the heat of the moment, you don't see. And then you rinse it and repeat it. You do it over and over and over again. So when you can record your speeches on your cell phone, when you can record it on Zoom, play it back. Send it to someone. Do a 3-minute speech, a 2-minute speech. Send it to some friends. Send it to some and say, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? Tell me 2 things I did right, 1 thing I did wrong. Get some feedback. People will give you different aspects of what they see. One of the biggest things I found in Toastmasters was the ability to evaluate others. I learned more by evaluating, physically writing an evaluation that I would pass on to others as soon as their speech was over than I did in actually getting up there speaking and getting critique. So as you see things being done, I'd never seen that done before. That's kind of neat. Or they did that. I hope I don't do that way. So you see the good, the bad. So, but YouTube, as always, I've told you this many, many times, YouTube is probably the greatest teacher that I've found. Lots of insight, tips, things on speaking. If you have to give a speech, go do a few YouTube videos and find out how do you open the speech, how do you close it. A lot of very interesting things. Public speeches can be in person or virtual. This happens to be a virtual one. But I can't see my audience. I have no idea who's out there. I can't see their faces. I don't know anything. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about virtual, not much, but a little bit, but primarily concentrating on the in-person. In other words, somebody's up there on stage, or you're standing in front of an audience in a restaurant or whatever, wherever you may happen to be at. We'll cover some tips, as I said, about the virtual aspect. But regardless of whether you're in person or virtual, dress accordingly. You don't want to be in something that's not appropriate for the situation that you're in. Maybe the situation is, I am wearing a tuxedo. Maybe I'm just wearing a coat and tie. Maybe I'm just wearing a shirt. But dress accordingly for the audience that you're at. You remember, you're the credible person. You're the expert. Dress the part. And the stage, to me, provides the best feedback that's out there. I can look at my audience and I can tell by their facial expressions, by their body language, by their eyes, everything that I'm absorbing from the audience, I can tell what's going on. Let's talk about organizing your speech. Understand your audience, what problems, what solutions they want. When I get in front of an audience, I usually, before I get up there, I have time to mingle around, get to know who they are. You know, let's say Sally's over here and she has a question about Alzheimer's because her mom has early onset signs. Jenny over here has another problem that she may or may not have somebody would do. So I know some of the people and I can call them out by name. And I say, do you mind if I use your name and your example when I'm speaking? You don't want to catch somebody that has a private issue and you pour it out to the whole audience. Sometimes your speeches are recorded and now they're going out to a larger audience. So if you're going to call somebody out by name ahead of time, make sure you get their permission. What are the reasons they're attending today? Are they attending because 2 or 3 speakers ago was the main reason that they're here? You just happen to be one of the speakers that are here and they didn't, they paid for the event and they're going to sit and listen to everything. So sometimes not everybody is there for you. So what is your goal? What value are you adding? What solutions are you offering? Those are the things that are critical in your speech. Length of speeches vary by quite a bit. I think most of us should be able to master the 3-minute speech. 3 to 5 minutes, you're talking about toasts, you're talking about intro, eulogies, graduations, lots of things there that toasts can be done for. Yet, as a Toastmaster, we never concentrate on toast. It's just one of those things that just never happens. Why am I a Toastmaster if I can't deliver a toast? That's for whatever reason. I don't know. I've asked the question. They don't concentrate on being able to deliver a toast for any event. Sometimes we are invited to do a TED Talk or do a commencement or a short lecture, 10 to 20 minutes, 20 to 40 minutes, keynote speak, conference lectures. Most of the classes in college are usually around 40, 45 minutes. But when you're speaking to the people. So when I turn around and I'm speaking to the blackboard because I'm writing an equation on the blackboard for a statistics problem or whatever, I make sure that I boom my voice out because now all of a sudden I'm in a different direction. My voice is now echoing off the board. And if I just keep my voice, everything the way it is, all of a sudden they can't hear me, or they can't hear me as well as they could. So be aware of the situation you're in. If you're there talking to everybody and it's a big audience, make sure the people in the back can hear you. That's one of the first things you clear up at the very, very beginning. Be aware of the time. This is something that a lot of people don't have. Somebody knows. I go to a speech and I said, I'm giving a 10-minute speech today. Will you do me a favor? Would you hold up your cell phone in front of your chest when I have 2 minutes left? And they're sitting there and they're timing me, and I'm looking at they're timing me and they're giving me a head shake. And then all of a sudden they'll put the phone. That tells me I need to start wrapping things up. So in Toastmasters, you have people show a green card when you met your minimum limit. a yellow when you're halfway to the final, and red when you've actually mastered, when you have met the total distance of that particular speech. Sometimes the time of day determines a factor. You come back after lunch, everybody wants to go to sleep because if they had a big pasta meal or something with a lot of carbs, that is going to just kind of put people to sleep. So you have to kind of gear up a little bit more on your volume and your gestures. If you're the last speech of the day, people are waiting to get home, get out of there. So be aware of the time of the day and what the audience is thinking in addition to whatever you're talking about. I always tell people use the 3x3 rule. 3 topics, 3 subtopics, that's it. 12 things to remember. You just remember those 12 things. I got this and these 3 things. I have that and these 3 things. I have this and those 3 things. Those are the things that I need to remember. I memorize those. I know where I'm going, what's happening. And those 3 bullet points are the things that I should be able to talk about easily. Now, when I go through a practice speech in front of the family, I will generally read it several times in the pace that I think I want the speech to be given. And I plan on 4 minutes for a 7-minute speech. If Toastmasters, the max that we typically do is 7 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes. So I know that if I can do 4 minutes, I've met my minimum requirements. But I found out in many, many cases, by the time I actually give that 4-minute speech in real life, I am right up against the green card, which says, okay, I've met my time and I'm now toward the end of my absolute minimum that I have left. So it's different than when you practice doing something and doing it in real life. Have a short bio that somebody else can introduce you. Your introduction of your speech should capture their hearts and minds. In other words, when I talk about, imagine having breakfast with somebody who donated your heart to you. You had a heart transplant. How does that happen? Well, it turned out this happened actually with the CEO of a company. I was listening to him speak. He got the heart of a person and he met the person who donated that heart to him. Well, it turned out that person had a good heart, but very poor lungs. And to do a heart and lung transplant is extremely difficult. So the person who was in the process of dying donated their body. The doctors took the heart and lung as a total organ, donated it to this person, took the lungs out, discarded them, took the heart out, which was perfectly functional, and gave it to the CEO. So he ended up with a new heart. The woman ended up with a new heart and new lungs. And that's how that happened. But you're there to tell them how you're going to solve their problems. Introductions can take on many, many, many different ways. Storytelling, you just start telling a story. Ask a question. I just asked a question. Imagine. Personal anecdote. You have third party goes. I was at the governor's mansion the other night and I overheard this conversation of these 2 people. Can you imagine what they were saying? You can use all sorts of ways of introducing a speech, but you want to capture them from the very beginning. The what if. Sometimes you ask for volunteers, powerful quotes, surprising statistic, dramatic pause. I did a 5-second pause at the very beginning. Sometimes you walk up on stage and you just sit there for 3 seconds, 1001, 1002, 1003. And people are starting to, because you're not talking, they're starting to pay attention. Sometimes in the middle of a speech, you stop because you said something and you give it 3 seconds and then you say it again for dramatic effect. You can come out with a bold or startling statement, challenge conventional wisdom. Tell a joke. I don't recommend that. Some people who are great joke tellers bomb on stage, and you don't want to walk up there and bomb at the very, very beginning. Very few people can recover from that. So yes, you can do it. I don't recommend it. It's just one of those things that it's a difficult thing to pull off on a good day, even if you're experienced. If you give, what we call it ad hoc. If you are in the process of doing this regularly and you have the routine down and boom, you can do it, use it. Sometimes people use a prop or they state a problem. Lots of different ways. We want to establish credibility. One way to do that is through a current event. So I refer to the latest ceasefire or the latest weight loss drug, whatever it may happen to be. Establish your credibility through a current event. Slides. We're using slides here today because a lot of what I do, I use technical terms and a lot of them. I speak about things in the medical field, nutrition, etc. So I like to be able to put my words up there because people may not know how to write a particular word. And I give them that word that they can stop the presentation if they're looking at a repeat and write it down. Use large font, few words, few lines, minimize what's on the slide. Be prepared. And we're going to talk about this a couple more times. Sometimes you're up there and the power goes out, or they don't have a power cord, or you don't have the HDMI cable. There are many constraints that stop you from using your slides. How do you deal with it? Transitions. Transitions are super critical. In other words, today I'm going to talk about 3 things that you can lose weight. Let's talk about the first one. So I hold up my finger. I'm talking about 3 things to the first one. So I have things that I can do. The second one, people know that you've now finished the first one and moved on. The third thing is super important, I think, in whatever you want to say. But I use my fingers for that. Now, you have verbal, vocal, nonverbal. If I'm sitting there and I have a sad face and I'm trying to talk about something joyful, if I'm talking about something sad and I have a little bit of a funny, your body language should mirror your facial expressions, your verbal tone, the pace that you're doing things at should all align well. If I'm asking questions, is it a real question for the audience or is it a rhetorical question? When was the last time you did this? Or say, let me ask you a rhetorical question. When was the last time you did this? Because sometimes people are going to raise their hands because you asked them a question. Pauses are just as good in that transition. Or as I get to the end of number 1, I say, okay, that's the end of number 1. Let's get to number 2. And I start with a slight pause at the beginning or the end. Sometimes I'm up on stage and chronological time can be looked at from left to right. In other words, I start over the left side of the stage. 5 years ago, this is what, and I gradually move myself across the stage in a chronological flow. Sometimes I can change position or my tone or my location. I can move further up on the stage to get closer to the audience. I can increase the volume, increase the pace that I'm talking about. Lots of options I can change, but I want to make sure that I have full alignment with body contact and what I'm talking about. Now, most of the time I see people, they have lots of different body motions, gestures, but their face is the hardest thing for them to give a true definition of what they're talking about. When you have a passion and belief in something, your face is going to follow what you're saying. And getting this part below the neck is easy. Getting this part above the neck to agree with below the neck is difficult. That takes a lot of practice, Never turn down an opportunity to speak. That was a quote by a good friend of mine who passed away literally a couple of months ago. In Toastmasters, they tell you, never turn down an opportunity. You never know when it's coming about. And because of that, you don't know who's going to be in your audience. Maybe somebody's going to come up to you afterwards and say, I got a speaking opportunity. I want you to talk to. And things happen. Always, 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 always practice your speech. Sometimes you've given a speech 20 times. Go over it in your mind. What are the key points you want to get out? Sometimes I walk around a parking lot before I ever enter the building, and I'm giving my speech out loud because I want to make sure that I'm still current in what I'm talking about. If it's any way at all that you don't have to read your speech, don't. Reading a speech and speaking are 2 different animals. Memorize your topics. Like I say, a 3x3 is always good. That's usually a good 3 to 5 to 7 minute speech, depending on how much detail you want to get into. You know your topic. You owned it. You're the expert. Why can you not give a 3x3 kind of speech? I would say slides, none. If you're giving a speech, you don't want the attention going to the slide. If you have to have a slide, maybe the slide's up there for a website or your contact information. But also be aware, what happens if there's no electricity that day or whatever other issue may come up? If you have slides for virtual presentations, kind of like we're doing today, make sure that the continuity and the terms, everything that they need to know is in there. Language, jargon, don't assume everybody knows what you're talking about. If I'm talking about Alzheimer's and I want to get into phosphatidylserine as one of the 4 phospholipids in the body, people don't know what phospholipid is. They certainly don't know what phosphatidylserine is. They don't know how it affects the brain. Make sure that when you're introducing a topic, particularly if you have a slide, Okay, now I have the term up there. People can go back and look it up. Don't assume they know the jargon. Be prepared for questions during the speech. Somebody's going to raise their hand in the middle of the speech. Now you can detract that by saying, I'm going to take questions at the end or at the very, very beginning after you introduce yourself or do that opening. Say, I know you're going to have a lot of questions today. Would you please note them down someplace so you don't forget them and ask me at the end? If I can't cover it up on stage, I will catch me afterwards as I'm walking around, and I'll be happy to answer that particular question you have. So make sure that they know that you're interested in answering their questions, but you're not going to take questions during the speech. It's disruptive, and it'll offset your train of thought. Focus on value. What are you giving the audience to take away? What is super important today that they need to know, they must know, and make sure they know that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. I would say it's not an unusual thing to hear somebody repeat at least 3 times, 4 times or more that valuable point that they're trying to get across. Eye contact, absolutely. You're up there on stage, develop eye contact with somebody. We have a thing we developed here many years ago, and in my Toastmaster group, we called it a Texas two-step method. I'm on stage in the center, and all of a sudden I'll take 2 steps to the right, and I'll look at somebody, and all of a sudden I'm looking straight in their eyes, and I'm talking, and they're going to give me a little head nudge that, yeah, I hear you, I know what you're saying. You've just established contact. Now I'll back to the center of the stage again, talk for another few seconds or a minute. Now walk to the left. I'm doing a Texas two-step now to the left, and I'm picking a person. And so periodically I'm moving. I'm not being distracted because I'm all over the stage, but I'm up there and I'm moving so that I add a little bit of dimension. If I walk forward to the front of the stage, that's a more important part of my speech. I want people to know that that's front and it's important. So there's a lot of places on that stage. Let's say you're telling a story, and there's 2 people. Well, one of those people can be facing this way, and then you physically turn your body, but you're talking to the audience. The audience knows that there's 2 people talking. Sometimes you can give a different voice. Lots of ways to tell people that this is a 2-person conversation, and this is what you're doing. Ensure your audience knows who is speaking at that time. One of the things that I think is incredible. People are up there, they give a good speech, they look right, they dressed right, they get good gestures, but there's no smile, there's no enjoyment, there's no fun for what they're doing. Now maybe it's a serious topic, but when I see people sit down and smile at the very beginning, they're holding their hands usually like this at their waist so that they have all their fingertips touched, and they're smiling, they're putting the audience at ease, that you're making yourself a human. Smile. It's a super way of being able to help the audience relax, help you relax. And when you're closing up, make it clear to everyone. Okay, those are the 3 topics I talked about today. The first one was this, second one was this. And so in closing, this is what I want you to do. They know that the speech is getting near the end. You can paint a vision for the future. Imagine that if you adopted these weight loss habits, where you could be, or imagine whatever that imagination is, but you're painting a future. Summarize what you had. You can summarize more than once, depending on how important those solutions are for your audience. Sometimes there's a good closing story that mimics exactly what you're saying. Well, Mark Spitz, when he did this, well, it's interesting because the other day when he was doing this, it actually reinforces what I've been talking about today. And you talk about maybe an Olympic athlete that did something recently that most people are unaware of. There are lots of ways to bring in these other closing stories. An inspiring quote, a thought-provoking question. But keep your enthusiasm. You're winding down, don't wind down. Keep the enthusiasm. Let the speech wind down, but let your enthusiasm and your passion still be there. Thank the audience, and then your pause. Body language. If my body language is here and my hands are, that's different than when I'm up here. And if I have my hands over my shoulders, that's a pretty emphatic body gesture. If I keep them down below my shoulders, again, less intense. So if I have something and I want to raise one arm and walk forward or bend my body forward, what am I talking about? What's important? So if I'm hitting a really key point, I want to walk forward and say, this is super critical. Tell people when it is, but make sure your body language mimics it. Sometimes I'll walk forward and backward to give something. Sometimes I walk to the left side of the audience, to the right. Facial expression, absolutely critical. And that is something that you see in master speakers, their ability to change their facial expressions as they change their body language and gestures. I always use the fingers, 3 things, 4 things, because it helps emphasize what I'm saying and the fact that I'm connecting another ability of them to hear and see what I'm saying. If I happen to have a big pen in my pocket, and I've seen this happen too many times, that pen people focus on because it's a distraction. Take everything out of your pockets, walk up there, and be yourself. If you have something that's there that's a distraction, get away from it. I've seen too many people also. They're very good speakers. They have a great point to get across, but they have 1 or 2 hands in their pockets as they're speaking. They're up there leaning on a podium. Never, never, never lean on a podium. If you can get away from the podium and speak without the microphone, great. If you have to speak to the microphone on a podium, don't lean on it. Don't touch it. Make sure that your hands are out of your pockets. That's a safety valve. That's something, a little insecurity. Just use your body the way it's supposed to. Convey the emotion, the tone, the volume, the pace, the pauses, all those things. Some miscellaneous issues. Watch others. Evaluate how they're speaking. Like I said, every time I went to a Toastmaster meeting, we had the speakers up there. I would always, always, always write down my evaluation of them. And I would go into a lot of detail, because what I saw was things that, wow, that worked great. And tell them it worked great. Don't put down a bunch of stuff they did wrong. Yeah, they know what they did wrong. Other people are going to tell them. But try to give them some positive feedback. Hey, I really love the way you did this, or whatever it may happen to be. But give some positive critique, but also give them a little bit of things to improve. They say, I don't know your topic as well, but I think I would have brought this up if I were doing it. Again, you're qualifying it, because you don't want to be a big downer for somebody. They just got up there and maybe had a really difficult time giving that speech. Compliment them, give them an area for improvement, and then compliment them again. That's the way I do evaluations. What makes them successful? How did they connect with the audience? You can see how audiences react. Just turn and look. They get facial expressions. They're leaning forward their seats. The ums, the ahs, all sorts of things. In Toastmasters, we hit a bell. Somebody, we say, we don't know we're saying It's there. It's a filler. The brain is temporarily shut down. I can stop talking for a second or 2 seconds during the middle of a speech, and it means nothing. That's a short period of time. But if you purposely do it, it's silent to you up there speaking. It seems like a very long time. But if you're saying every time you're doing it, all of a sudden I had a 5-minute speech with 33 ahs. I never knew I said an ah. I'm not saying I did that, but I'm saying a lot of people. And so if you get immediate feedback when you're saying it, now I just said and somebody heard me, they did a bell. That is a really good way to break up. We've seen amazing progress with people just starting off speaking, and seriously, they'll do a dozen, 2 dozen filler words. And then a year later, they can give a speech and they may have 1 or 0. Most of the time we have problems. Like right now, I talk very quickly. That's one of my faults. If I'm giving a speech, I try to pace it back and forth depending on how my audience is and how far I have to speak in order to get the people in the back of the room to hear me. So if I have 10 people and they're all within 3 or 4 tables of me, I'll probably speak the way I am right now. If I have 10 tables, or I'm sitting there and we got 20 rows of people, I'm probably going to slow down a little bit. Not probably, I am going to slow down a little bit, because I want to be able to make sure that people in the back row can hear what I'm saying. And sometimes just that little bit of slowdown is what's there. And as always, get professional help when you need it. Toastmasters is there. Skills and tools to speak publicly. I like it. I like it a lot. There was another guy and I, we challenged each other, and one week he was a little ahead of me, another week I was a little ahead of him. And it turned out about 3 years later, we both ended up getting our distinguished Toastmaster. He got his, I think, on a Tuesday. I got mine on a Thursday. He beat me by a couple of days. But without that constant competition, neither one of us would have probably gotten it within 4 or 5 years. But there's a lot of professional speaking organizations around, YouTube, lots of things that are out there that can help. Record your speeches, put them on your website. If you can't get a fee for giving a speech to a group, ask permission to sell your books in the back of the room if you have books to sell. Ask permission to give your contact information for somebody that you might be able to coach or whatever. There are ways to get paid for giving a free speech. And most of us in the speaking arena give free speeches. If you're speaking on camera virtually, greatly different. A couple points here. The background can be very distracting, depending on, like, in other words, I know that if I have a light background, my head blends into it. So I have to have a dark background. If I have black hair and I have a black background, I now have a face that you can't see my hair. There are many distractions, and people look at that rather than look at anything else. All of a sudden, the screen freezes. I keep talking. They can hear me, but they may not be able to see me. I may have the inability to show slides for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. I have to be able to give my speech now without the slides. How do I do that? I need to know, will the person controlling, like we're on StreamYard right now, and Dr. Jacqueline is the production engineer, but I may be a guest on a Zoom meeting. Do they have crawlers? How do they contact? There's a lot of things. If you're giving a speech to a group of people, know what the constraints of the software are and what you have to do to help that person out. Many times you're in a meeting with 12, 15, 20 other people, and they say, let's go around in 30 seconds, tell people about, know how to give a 30-second or longer speech, roundtable distributions. Keep your microphone off at all times. If you're not speaking and you're on a virtual meeting, keep it off. Now, what's going to happen is it's going to come to you, and you're going to start speaking, and they'll say, your mic's on mute. That's fine. Just turn it on. But have fun, enjoy, promote. Conventions. One of the things I do at a convention I go to, I will usually hand out some cards or invites. I say, hey, in room 513 tonight after the deal, I'm having free wine and beer, and some food. Come up and join me. So I try to get people that I have met or people I think that might be important to me in my networking future to come up and have a hour of social intercourse and enjoy life. You sell your books, sign and date them, personalize them for the person. Your on-stage credibility means a lot, but don't come off stage and be another person. I've seen it more than a couple times. I would really like to meet that person, and all of a sudden I'm standing in line, and there's something going on. That's not the same person who was up there on stage. They're just a totally different character. And don't let anybody steal your joy. And that was it. That is my presentation for today. I look forward to catching you all next week. And until then, don't let anybody steal your joy. Bye now.
Have you ever felt unheard? Like your words float into a void, leaving you invisible and disconnected? How about feeling judged, when assumptions overshadow your truth, leaving you misunderstood and defensive? And then there's that moment when someone offers solutions you never asked for, dismissing your feelings and leaving you more frustrated than before. It doesn't have to be this way. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, the listening mentor, understands. She's here to help you reclaim your voice, build stronger connections, and create meaningful conversations that inspire understanding and mutual respect. Through her groundbreaking books, online and in-person courses, and interactive workshops, you'll learn how to navigate life's most challenging interactions. Discover the power of elevated listening and transform how you communicate. Master setting boundaries and asking permission to protect your peace. Learn to recognize and release judgment, fostering empathy and true connection. Dr. Kerbeck also offers personalised coaching, one-on-one or group sessions designed to fit your unique needs. Whether in person or virtually on StreamYard, her guidance will empower you to thrive. You don't have to struggle alone. The path to deeper connections and better relationships start here. Visit drjacqueline.com or usaglobaltv.com. Join a global community of empowered listeners and transform your life, one meaningful conversation at a time. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck is the listening mentor. Start your journey today. In a world full of noise, misunderstandings, and interruptions, master the art of listening with Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck is the listening mentor of USA Global TV and Radio and the Amazon #1 best-selling author of Mastering the Power of Elevated Listening. Elevate your listening. Elevate your life. Join a global learning experience in person or via Zoom. Reserve your spot today. usaglobaltv.com/book-your-session or drjacqueline.thinkific.com. Join Dr. Kerbeck's listening courses or hire her to unlock deeper connections and authentic conversations. Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USAGlobalTV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dies. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.